It is now March, which is Women's History Month, which includes International Women's Day, St. Patrick's Day, and the Ides of March? If you've been around the channel before, you know that I'm covering every single movie from the Into the Dark series. If you don't know what that is, Into the Dark is a series created by Blumhouse and Hulu, where there are different horror movies for different holidays. So far, I've covered Christmas, New Year's, and Valentine's Day, and now it's time to tackle two more, one about International Women's Day and the other about St. Patrick's Day. So, let's get into it. Since International Women's Day is before St. Patrick's Day, let's talk about that movie first. It is called Treehouse. Interesting title, we'll get to that part later. It follows this man, we'll also get to that part later, who is somewhat of a kind of celebrity chef on TV, but he's not too famous. He gets caught up in some controversy or whatever, and he escapes to his hometown where he is confronted by the women of his past. He goes back to his childhood home, which he hasn't been to in a while since his parents died, and his sister lives there now. His sister is the DA, and she's just like, hey, I got DA stuff to go attend to. And then she just leaves for basically the entire movie. And so now he's just here alone with their blind housekeeper. So this guy just piddles about for 30 minutes. Maybe it's important to know that he's divorced and he doesn't get to see his daughter that much. That doesn't really come into play until a lot later. But for the first 30 minutes, he's just kind of hanging around the house. And then eventually 30 minutes in, a group of women show up to his door because they're all having a bachelorette party and their power went out. And now they're coming to him and he's like, hey, like, come in, like, we'll have dinner together. I'll make you guys dinner because I'm a celebrity chef and we can all just hang out. And these women are also from the hometown, so they all sort of know each other, and they go all the way back to high school, and now they're all hanging out. There's a really weird line, like one of the weirdest lines I've just ever heard in a movie, period, in this, where the women arrive and then, like, say hi to the housekeeper, but the housekeeper, like, doesn't say anything and just walks away. And to which the man says, she's a lot like Master Po from Kung Fu. That's the line.
Agnes, please meet our guests.
Agnes!
Oh, she's a bit like Master Po from Kung Fu.
I guess, like, legally, maybe you can't say the full Kung Fu Panda, but even in that context, I don't know what that means, that she's a lot like Po, because Po is, like, very talkative and extroverted, and she didn't say anything. Anyway, so they're having their dinner, they're reminiscing about old times, they're having fun, it's a well-cooked meal, but this man is starting to feel a little sick, and so sick that he sort of starts stumbling and vomiting, and people are like, oh, like he just kind of drank too much, but he ends up passing out. Then he wakes up, chained to a bed, and the women surround him over the bed, and he's like, you guys are crazy, you're angry bitches. And then to which one of them respond, we're not angry bitches, we're angry witches. To which she, like, lights a candle with the power of her hand. And then it's like, oh, this is the direction the movie's going 45 minutes in, halfway through its runtime. Okay. And so basically the entire rest of the movie is just these women torturing this man because, backstory, in high school he had raped their friend in a treehouse. That's why the movie's called Treehouse. And when that friend got older, she committed suicide, and they really, just blamed the whole thing on him, and he hasn't really changed in the years since. He's still like this kind of playboy, rude guy who doesn't really care about other people, and they want to teach him a lesson, and they're all witches. And so he, eventually escapes out of the chains, and they run around, and the whole final thing is just a chase scene. So now I'll get into spoilers. If you care about that, you can skip ahead. It's revealed by the end of the movie that no, these women are not magical. They just used, like, magic tricks to make them seem like they're witches and have magical powers and scare this guy into becoming a better person. Now he fears he's being followed by a coven of witches, and they'll hunt him down if he ever mistreats another woman again. Here's the thing, is that sure, I like the concept for a international, if you're making an International Women's Day horror movie, it makes perfect sense for it to be a revenge film where women get revenge on a man. Perfectly sound, I like that. But when the man is the main character and we follow him throughout the entire movie, it's like he's sort of set up to be the protagonist here, and the women are the antagonist, the obstacles getting in his way of wanting to do things. Could possibly be argued that it should be the other way around for an International Women's Day movie. When the actual meat of the plot is revealed 45 minutes in, it just made me feel like, well, what have I been watching for the past 45 minutes? It's just been this guy. Sure, he's been rude to people, maybe made some sexist remarks here and there, but overall, he seems decent enough. I mean, but then once you hear the backstory of what he did and everything, then it's like, okay, yeah, sure, you can say that he deserves this and whatnot, and there in itself is actually an interesting concept to play with a movie like this. Is where is the line? What is the morality of revenge? Is revenge always justified? Is this the best way to process trauma? I'm sure there can be a very nuanced version of the script where they go back and forth, but at the end of the day, it's about International Women's Day, and we just want to watch a revenge movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just, why isn't this about a female main character in an International Women's Day movie? They're not the main character. And that leads me to the craziest realization I had, is that I found out this movie was indeed written and directed by a man. The International Women's Day movie was written and directed by a man. This really caught me off guard because, sure, yeah, I know a majority of movies that exist are written by men and directed by men, but at least for the Into the Dark series, there a few of them have been directed and written by women, like New Year, New You and My Valentine, both of which directed by women. And so I was like, oh, it makes sense for this to be from a female perspective, no? And so for that reason, it just sort of fell apart. And it's not that it's like men can't write about women's issues. It's just that the entire point of this series existing is about different holidays. And this is the women's holiday. And then also the execution. Because, I mean, the actors are trying, all of them. But at the end of the day, the women were sort of written of like, yeah, this is what a woman would say if she was mad at a man, instead of just being written by a woman. And also you could say it's sort of flawed. It's like an interesting, cute idea of like this like group of women who like torture men to make them become better people and not sexist anymore. I like that idea. But also you'd think that, you know, becoming not sexist would involve just having, you know, empathy for women and not just being scared for your own life. I don't know if it really counts if you're just like, oh, I'm nice to women because I don't want to die. You should be nice to women because you should be. And I get it. If it was from the perspective of one of the women, you don't really get that plot twist of like, oh no, these women are bad guys. And it's like if they're all in on it, then it kind of is less scary. And then you're just watching them like torture a guy. But at the same time, again, here's my official rewrite pitch, is you have a woman who's like new into this group of women who doesn't necessarily understand the full thing. And then once they start torturing a man, she's like, wait, this is kind of too far, guys. I don't know about this. And then all the women are like, oh no, like he deserves it. And then you can still get that like shock value of someone seeing it and experiencing it for the first time, still be from the perspective of a woman. But what's probably most puzzling about this entire movie is if you go onto the Wikipedia page for Into the Dark, this movie is listed to be both about International Women's Day and the Ides of March. What? If you don't know, the Ides of March is like a holiday where Julius Caesar was killed. back in ancient Rome. And that's the day. So I don't know what this movie has to do with that at all. You could say it's about a powerful man being taken down, and there are knives because Julius Caesar was stabbed in the back. The chef guy, has like his own brand of knives. But his name's not Julius or anything. But the whole movie is perplexing to me. There are like good ideas in there, but overall I just think the execution of a Women's Day movie kind of fell flat. And for that reason, on the holiday meter, this is not how good the movie is, but how good it lives up to the holiday it's supposed to represent. I just have to give it a 2 out of 10.
She's a bit like Master Po from Kung Fu.
Moving on from that, we now get to Crawlers, which is the St. Patrick's Day horror movie from the series. This one I had a lot more fun with. To be honest, I've actually already seen this movie when it came out in 2020, and I just rewatched it again for this video, and to be honest, I liked it a little bit more. Crawlers is about a college town bar crawl happening on St. Patrick's Day, but shape-shifting aliens invade, and basically how the aliens work is they bite you, and once like they have your blood in their system, they can shapeshift into you, and so then they can like shapeshift into all the people they've bitten and killed and all that stuff, and it's a cool concept. First thing I noticed is that there's actually like a lot of extras and actors, and usually Into the Dark movies take place in a one location, sort of contained to only a few people, but just having the numerous extras made it feel like, wow, this is more of like a big budget movie. I don't know if this movie got a bigger budget than the others, but it certainly feels like it with all these groups of people on the street and in a bar. It was nice to see. And throughout the movie, there is voiceover from, I guess you could say, our main character. She's the one who's like the conspiracy theorist who believed in the aliens all along. And basically, the movie, literally every 30 seconds, the movie would just sort of pause, and then she would go like either give exposition, which is mainly at the beginning, but then as the movie continues, she continues to give voiceover, but it's more like one-liner, like Deadpool quips, which could maybe get on your nerves after a little bit. But I will say, unlike all the other Into the Dark movies that I've covered so far, this one starts immediately. The other movies take about 30 or more minutes to like actually get to what the movie is about or the scary thing about the movie, just like I mentioned with Treehouse. But this, the aliens basically attack right away. There's like an opening bar scene where you're introduced to all the characters, but then things just get going and they don't stop, and it's really fast paced, and it's like the fastest paced out of all the movies I've talked about so far, which I do appreciate. There's a group of friends, but their friend goes missing, and they're like, uh-oh, what happened to her? She went over to a frat boy's house. They go over to the frat boy's house. The frat boy was attacked by an alien, and now their friend is gone. And then so they team up with the frat boy, who they're kind of sus of because you're like, he's a frat boy. But they go and they learn about the aliens and what's happening, and they have to get their friend back while going to kill the alien hive. One reason it's so fast-paced is because everyone just immediately sort of believes what's going on, because our main character like believes in the aliens. Like, she's like, oh yeah, my mom witnessed a UFO crash in the 70s, and then so like I know aliens are real, and then everyone's like, oh yeah, okay, aliens are real, and they don't have to spend too much time going, what are these things, and then like having to study them and slowly figure it out and it get revealed. And no, they already just know like immediately what's going on and what it is, which, you know what, for one of these movies I kind of appreciated that they just kind of skip over that part, because they eventually do go to the mom's house, and you could see like the mom is a total conspiracy theorist who's been apparently studying these things for decades. And so, you know what, a bit of a plot convenience, yeah, but it's for the sake of the pacing, and I liked it. I do think most of the budget probably went to hiring all those extras at the beginning, because there's not any more group scenes after they leave the bar, and all the alien action scenes, you could say, are all sort of one-on-one hand combat, and there isn't a big scene where all the aliens are running at all the other people and there's a big fight. No, none of that happens. It's all very small and contained, and the climax of the movie takes place at what's supposed to be like this big party, but they like empty it out, and so then it's just a big empty room, which I don't know. I would have, I'm sure, I'll blame it on the budget, but I would have liked to see a more bigger scope of action in there too. And of course, like any good shapeshifter movie, there has to be a moment where one of them is infiltrated the group and we don't know which person it is, and then there's also a moment at the end where there's two of the same person, and it's like, do you know the real me? What would the real me do in this situation? And they have to choose, which is fun. You may have noticed I'm not really going into character specific details because there's not a lot of them. Because it is so fast paced, it sort of loses out on characterization for the characters. There's the frat boy who's like, hey, I actually volunteer and stuff, and I don't like what my friends do. I'm not a stereotypical one. And then you're like, oh, okay. That's not really character growth. That's just him talking about himself, though. There is another character who, I guess, the friend who goes missing has been really mean to her, and then at the end of the movie she learns to like stand up for herself, and that's mainly the big thing of the movie, is like her learning that it's like, oh, you don't actually care about me as a friend, but I care about you, and that's sad. And that's sort of the emotional through line, which is confusing because that person who realizes that is not the main character. The main character, supposedly the one who knows all about the aliens, yeah, she doesn't have an arc or change at all either. She's just like, no one believes me when I say aliens are real. And then she goes, oh, people believe me now, let's go. And now that's about it. That's her character. And she's the one narrating the whole thing, which makes her look like the main character. But really, I think the main character should be the one who learns a lesson or evolves throughout the movie, which is the other character. The other thing I really appreciated about this movie is that at the end there are bloopers. That's funny. Bring those back, huh? That's about it. So for the St. Patrick's Day elements, it is a bar crawl, and the aliens are crawlers, and so it's a pun on that, which is clever. It's probably the most clever title out of the ones I've talked about so far, so I appreciate that. The whole St. Patrick's Day setup just gives a good reason why all these college kids are out right now, and sort of makes it a big threat to the community. I don't know what sort of St. Patrick's Day themes there are in the that exist in the real world, like what he drove out the snakes, and now these people are driving out the aliens. There's that. But overall, I don't know how deep you can actually make a St. Patrick's Day horror movie, and for that reason, I think this did a really good job of doing that. They're college kids, there's drinking, they're wearing green, aliens are green, slime is green, and for that reason, I kind of give this a holiday score of 8 out of 10. Overall, I think Treehouse was sort of a confusing enigma of a movie on why that is about International Women's Day, and Crawlers was actually a fairly good time, just fun, fast-paced action, aliens with a little too much narration, and for that reason I am updating my Into the Dark rankings list as such. Pretty high spot for Crawlers and a pretty low spot for Treehouse.
Oh, she's a bit like Master Po from Kung Fu.
Thank you for watching, and stay tuned because next month in April we get to cover the April Fool's Day movie and the Easter movie, which is a sequel to Puka. So subscribe so you can catch that when that comes out, and I'll be releasing other videos in the meantime. And in the other meantime, watch this next video too.